Hello everyone, it's Tilly from Tilly Journals. Welcome back to my channel and to another Plan With Me video. I am planning the week of the 23rd of December in my 2024 planner. This is the last spread in my 2024 planner and is Christmas week, which is always a fun week to plan. I am using Log Cabin Christmas, which was a mystery kit this year, I think, from Plannerface. It could be last year, I can't remember honestly. I'm pairing it with a matte bronze foil bundle from Crest Press in the mistletoe, so you can see that there, and then with some solid red underlays from my shop and some tartan underlays from Scribble Prints Co. So there is lots of beautiful foil going on. It's nice and red and Christmassy and beautiful, and I am excited for it. So yeah. What else for the base? I do PR for Plannerface, so you can use Tilly to save 10%, and I do get a discount from promoting her stickers. So that's the little... I finished 4-week books this week, which we'll go into shortly, and the highlight of the week was obviously celebrating Christmas. Christmas Day was on Wednesday, but I had family time a lot this week. There was one day my husband was at work, but pretty much the rest of the week was Christmas celebrations, or like bits and pieces. So let's get back into it and talk about the books I finished this week, because I think that is everything for the base. My last video I chatted way too much about the base and stuff, and then ended up with not enough time to, actually talk about my day-to-day plans, and it all ended up a bit squished. So we are gonna talk about the books now. So the first book I finished was So This Is Christmas by Tracy Andreen. So this is about Finley, who decides to return home for Christmas holidays, and she never expected to run into somebody from school, not somebody who was talking about how idyllic Christmas, the place she lived, was, which was a massive lie. Join Finley as she tries to give Arthur and his aunt the Christmas he expected after she'd talked about it, whilst navigating her bestie dating her ex, her parents' separation, and her rival working for her grandma, and much, much more. So this is actually a YA, but I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's just a perfect little Christmas YA rom-com. There's some lovely coming of age features sprinkled in, and like learning to love yourself, and also lots of like banter and funny moments. It's so much festive fun, and the main character isn't feeling particularly festive, which was quite a nice way to like look at things, because Christmas is hard for a lot of people and you cannot feel very festive at all, and like it's quite nice to have that sort of element represented in a book that like, I'm not feeling Christmas at all, I don't want to do this, Blair. It's quite nice to like read about. And I think there's a lovely balance of like romance with family dynamics and other relationships, and then Christmas, the town itself, and it could be like that really cozy, cute Hallmark Christmas. That's like the vibes it gave me, and I always love that in a book. So it was a good read, and I think I listened to this via audiobook off the top of my head. So yeah, that was that. The next book I finished was It Was You by Jo Platt. I listened to this as an audiobook as well. In fact, all of the books I finished this week were audiobook because I was really struggling with my physical book. So there's that. The next book I'm going to talk about was It Was You by Jo Platt, and I read this for a readathon, and this was a rainbow cover. I ended up giving this 4 stars. It's not got very many reviews and things, but I thought it was quite nice. So this wasn't a Christmassy read. In fact, the only Christmassy read I read this week, slightly ironically, was So This Is Christmas. The others were all non-Christmassy. So Alice and her friends are in a book club, which really is just an excuse to chat and spend time together. Alice actually never finishes the book, even though they only read short books. Alice hasn't felt like dating anybody in a long time, so when her book club decides to start setting her up, you join her as she embarks on those dates and supports her friends through their own challenges. This is like somewhere between a romance and slice of life. It was pretty predictable and cozy, but that's kind of what I want to read at this time of year. There were some curveballs thrown in that I didn't see coming. So it was quite like an interesting read at the same time. I wasn't actually the biggest fan of the main character, Alice. She really needs to do what she actually wants to do, not just rely on her friends to fix her life. And I really found that frustrating. Like, you can't just rely on other people to make your life better. You need to do that yourself. Not just, you need to work at that yourself. You can't always fix it yourself, and you might not even be able to fix your life at all. But, like, actually make some effort, dude. Come on. There wasn't actually that much of seeing the couple together, and there was way too much miscommunication for my liking. Like, it was just like, come on, really, you do not need to miscommunicate this much. It is a bit endless. There was an epilogue that rounded things off nicely, and I was glad that that was part of it, because it, like, wrapped up quite a few plot points and things, so that was good. So yeah, all in all, a pretty positive read. So yeah. I don't think that I've got anything else to say about the book. I'm going to quickly talk about Harry Potter. We're going to skate over this pretty quickly because I'm not a fan of the author, and I really do not support the author at all, but their books are some of my favourites from childhood, and they are a comfort reread for me. So I finished Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone this week on audiobook, which was the book I was listening to fall asleep. I don't know whether I'm going to keep including my falling asleep books in my sidebar and or my Storygraph / Goodreads goal, basically because sometimes I get through them really quickly when I'm not sleeping very well, and others it takes me like 6 weeks to finish a book. So we'll see how I get on over the year. But I'm kind of leaning towards not including them in my sidebar, because it's also the same books over and over again, and that must get boring for you guys. So anyway, if you don't know anything about Harry Potter, it's about Harry, who is the boy who lived. This is the first book in the series, and essentially he finds out he's a wizard and goes to magic school, and there are some happenings at school about a stone, well, about something being hidden, and yeah, that's kind of the premise. It's enjoyable, particularly if you read them as a child. I don't know if I read them for the first time now how I'd feel about them, but especially knowing the author's views on a few things that I strongly disagree with, particularly trans folk. So yeah, but I have to give it 4 stars because 5 stars because it is still one of my favourite books. And the final book I finished this week, I actually listened to in one day, and it's not the happiest book in the world. I listened to it on Sunday. So I read The Tattoo of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I can't think that I've picked this up properly before, but I've definitely thought it's been on my TBR for a very long time. So this is based on the true story of Lael, who was a Jew who ended up in Auschwitz, and he became the one to mark arrivals with a number, hence the tattooist of Auschwitz. He also met Gita, who he fell in love with, and you join them on their journey and eventual move to Australia after World War II ended. That is in the blurb, like, I'm not spoiling that for you. That is, like, you know that going into the book. I find books like this really hard to rate. I gave it 4.5 stars in the end, because it's not necessarily an enjoyable read. Like, how can reading about genocide and atrocities be enjoyable? But, like, there's a lot of hope and optimism in this book, and I binge listened to it in one day, so if it was a darker read, I'd have really struggled to do that. The strength and resilience of real people in this novel is astounding. They lead and are forced to lead and live horrific lives, and especially as a descendant of a Polish grandfather who was in a concentration camp for part of the war, like, the strength and resilience of people is just astounds me every time I learn more about it. And as Lael said, we need these stories to prevent such atrocities in the future. The reason this is 4.5 stars and not higher is actually the writing is a bit meh at times, and at the end of the day I rate my books on enjoyment, so I don't think I could have genuinely given it 4.5 stars. I've actually given it 4 stars on good Storygraph, which I actually think is more accurate than the 4.5 I've put in my sidebar, but yeah, anyway, so I gave it 4 stars overall in the end. So that is all of the books I read this week. It's a bit of a dark note to end that on, but that is how the cookie crumbles. So let's get into the day by day. So Monday was a very busy day. It was the 23rd of December, so it was the day before Christmas Eve, and we started off the day by designing some scripts. I wasn't feeling very good, but it was what it was. I was still like feeling sad from the week before and everything that had happened that week. Things did actually get better this week, and that helped a lot. So just marked that I was really in my feelings. We then had sort of a family party. I don't really know how else to describe it. Basically, we had my auntie and uncle and all of their kids over, and another auntie and uncle and their child. That we are all grown-ups, but the 2 of my cousins have their own kids as well, so there were 22 of us in total. So it was a lot of people, and it was a lot of fun just to spend time with family and have that family time. I spent quite a lot of time playing with the kiddos. My nephew always wants to play with me, really, so I was having playtime with him. After the party / meet up ended, I did have some playtime with just Felix because he needed a bit of alone time. Then we headed across to Yorkshire Wildlife Park, and I crocheted in the car, and we actually went to the Yorkshire Wildlife Park illuminations, which were really good. Me and my husband had been a little bit earlier in the year to Yorkshire Wildlife Park, and we'd seen the illuminations not lit up, and I was a bit like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but actually lit up, they looked amazing. We obviously didn't see many of the animals because it was dark, obviously, and cold, so they were hiding away in their indoor spaces, but still, it was nice to be there. And then we went out for dinner afterwards at a restaurant called Evolution, which is a dinosaur themed restaurant, which my nephew loves dinosaurs, so it was really nice to see him there. On to Christmas Eve. My family were trying to get things finished at their house, so we ended up doing some babysitting this day. We were actually going to go over to their house, but we didn't in the end. But anyway, it was Christmas Eve, and started the day off with doing some odd jobs and bits and pieces around the house. And then I was feeling really, really tired, so I had a nap on the sofa. I then got a phone call from the perinatal consultant to have a chat about how I was doing, and actually I was saying, I'm feeling a bit better than I have been. I don't know whether it's the time off work or the increase in my meds, obviously, because I wasn't doing so great and now I'm starting to feel a bit better. But yeah, so he said would leave things as they were and she'd review me this year, which weirdly is the day I am filming this voiceover. Then I did some more crochet because I was trying to get my nephew's jumpers finished, as I said. And then my nephew came over and I looked after him. We played with Lego. He loves my house for the amount of Lego we have. He loves playing with my Harry Potter sets, even though he does not know Harry Potter at all. And I've been collecting Harry Potter Lego since it first came out, so I do have quite a lot, especially the early sets, so he loves it. I then had a phone call with my careco Rebecca, just to try and feel a bit better about the conversation we'd had about autism the week before and neurodivergence, and honestly it did really help. And I came out of that phone call being like, okay, she understands why I got so upset on the call, and I understand what she was trying to say at the same time, and it was really positive, and I felt quite a lot better afterwards. Then I spent the rest of the evening crocheting basically, and then we read to Christmas to Bump, and we actually read The Night Before Christmas, which we're going to try and make a annual little tradition to read that to baby on Christmas Eve. On to Wednesday, which was Christmas Day. So that's the first thing I have marked. Me and my husband started the day at our house and we had some cuddles. Then we headed across to my parents' house and opened our stocking presents, and then I did some playtime with Felix. With him having opened his presents, we were just having playtime and having fun together, and that was really nice. Then we opened our own Christmas presents, so I've marked that nice and big because my parents Santa properly spoil us, to the point that we actually didn't open our presents from each other until I think the next week, potentially, or later this week. I'll have marked it in when I did it. Oh no, on Friday. So it was 2 days after Christmas when we opened our presents to one another, because we were too much new stuff, feeling overwhelmed. I did some little bits of crocheting to try and finish his jumpers whilst I was there. Then enjoyed our Christmas dinner, which it was a roast, of course. Then had lots of family time, just spending time together, playing with our presents, and just being a family. And that's what Christmas is all about to me. So at Christmas this year, we had me and my husband Soch, my parents, my sister and her husband, my nephew, and my eldest brother came over for some of the day, but unfortunately he had to work later in the day. He manages a pub and went in to help out there. He's very good egg and makes sure his workers have the time off they want, so he went into work that day. But then my other brother and sister-in-law popped over as well. Then we watched Tiddler, which is I can't remember her name, the person that wrote The Gruffalo. It's a book she wrote that had a new adaptation that had been played on Christmas, so we watched that. Then I did my nephew's bedtime stories, and when I came home, me and my husband had some lovely cuddles, and it was a really nice day. It was a nice Christmas, and I was really pleased for that. We've had a few shocking Christmas periods over the last few years, so it was nice to have a decent Christmas period this year. So moving on to Boxing Day, which was Thursday, had a nice lazy morning, and then we headed across to Manchester and had family time with Sochan's family. Unfortunately, his parents were not getting on very well on this day, and it really upset my husband, and he was really struggling with it. His dad actually didn't stay very long, and yeah, he was just feeling quite bleh by the end of the day, so I was trying to look after him, and this was probably the worst day of Christmas period, to be honest, but it was still nice, and we still saw our family and things like that, and I had a long chat with Sochi on the way home, and he felt a bit better by the time we got home. Then I've just marked that I was in my feelings both about that, and both my brother was being a bit difficult, and it upset me, so I marked that in, but I didn't talk to Soch about that at the time because I didn't feel like it was appropriate given what was going on with his family. And then when I got home, we did some odd little jobs to finish the day. On Friday, my husband was at work, but I was at home, so I started the day by stickering up my journal and worked on my January goals. Even though I set my bullet journal up at quite early, I like to not finish my goals until nearer the end of the month, so I know what got done and what didn't. Then I was working on crocheting my nephew's jumper. I actually finished it this day. I gave him it the following day and then finished his other jumper the next day, because I made him two, one festive one and one non-festive one. Then I did some planning of my Q1 pages in my planner. Basically, after that January goal session, I could make sure everything was in place. Then went over to my mum and dad's house and did some baking with my mum. My sister, brother-in-law and nephew went down to Darlington for the 26th and 27th, up to Darlington, which is where my brother-in-law's sister lives. Then I sat and wrote January's birthday cards to make sure they were done well before January, and then we opened our presents to one another, me and Sochi, so I was then feeling very loved. On to Thursday and Friday, which I'm going to have to rush through a little bit more. We went across to Newcastle to see my gran, my dad's mum, and we had lots of family time with her. I was crocheting to try and finish off the jumpers. We had a lovely dinner, which was a gnocchi based thing, and lots of family time. Then in the car on the way home, I did do some reading, but I was just feeling a bit in my feels from the couple of days before and just bleh. And then I did some planning to finish the day. On to Sunday, we had a nice lazy day, did some bits of laundry. I was working on planner setups, both for my memory planner and for my bullet journal and stuff, and I was just listening to the Tattoo of Auschwitz all day. I was also doing the colouring in for my book journal, so I listened to the whole of Tattoo of Auschwitz this day, did some reading admin, and finished the day with some colouring for my book journal. And that is it for this video, and there were my leftovers. Comment down below, how was your Christmas? Did you have a good day? Leave me a Christmas tree in the comments if you watched this far. Comment down below, all that kind of jazz, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye!